Okay, so I have my dual brush working. I'm going to make it a little bit more refined with its shape dynamics. I'm going to make its minimum diameter a little bit smaller. So I can have really kind of fine lines if I want. I'm going to play with my color dynamics so that as long as I have fairly similar foreground and backgrounds, they'll be pretty reliable. There we go, that looks good. This is kind of my test palette here behind everything. So I've got a lot of different effects going on. I might try turning my wet edges off for a while so I can build up more directly. And then we'll see what we get. So go back on top here, turn these on, see where I still have work to do. And with this background layer, I can also fade it in if I want. I can use opacity, I can use blending modes. So there's lots still to be done to make this painting my own. There we go. So with that dual brush, I can add some of that texture and some of that variation right to my painting without having to always change paint colors because it's working between my foreground and background a little bit. So now with a slightly smaller tip, I'm able to kind of define some of these shapes a little bit more. By having a background that's darker, I can kind of see where those values need to push in stronger. Where they need to sit on top as highlights. When I have a dark background color and I'm using dual brush, I mostly need to work with shadows. So I'm going over my shadows a little bit and giving them some variation, cementing the values I know are dark. Some midtones, build that texture up. And notice I still haven't zoomed in at all. I'm trying to get as much done as I can from out here, looking at the whole thing together before I get swamped with little details. And you can see how far I've come from my base layers, like the shirt and stuff that I haven't really touched much at all on this duotone layer. How much can be done, how much can be brought back, what edges can be refined. So it's good to work with a foreground and background color with the dual brush that are close to the same value. Not black and white necessarily, unless you really want to add some texture. So they work consistently together. So right now I'm working on kind of the middle tones. Remember when I did my rough painting, I broke everything up into 5 values. Well, that's kind of still how I'm looking at it. How to build up these different textures. See, I'm using that rust color quite a bit now. It's helping define some things for me. Get some of that texture in. But still mostly squinting and just looking at the values. The illusion of 3 dimensions is given through value and through edge control. Where you place the values, how you treat their edges. Now, if I keep doing this for too long, it will start softening everything. I don't want to end up with that. So I like how that hair is working. So I think now is a good time to turn that off. Turn the dual brush off. and just play with my foreground color. And whenever you go through and do midtones, and you want to make sure you haven't lost highlights that are important. And this textured brush is just kind of a very soft, low opacity. I'm only at 30%. A textured brush for highlights. Like glazing over like a bristle brush with in oil paint over the top. You can see how I can match the texture of this background pretty well with these brush settings. All right, so that's a big change in that duotone layer. You can see all the painting that's going on there. Its effect. I'm going to erase back